Boom, Watch Fam! What is up, Watch Fam, and welcome to episode 81 of Ask TNH. Quick wristwatch check before we get into the show. I'm wearing a killer super compressor made by Exactus. I love the patina on the dial, as well as the original double crowns and all that stuff. It'll eventually be available in the shop, theoharris.com, but not yet because I'm wearing it, that simply. Sorry. Today we're going to be talking about something that is definitely very, very vintage. We're talking about something that is kind of a reissue from a brand that we all like, a brand that we mostly like, and we're talking about a watch that I like quite a bit. So the question is whether I think someone should go for save up for a Rolex Daytona or go with a Tudor Heritage Chronograph in blue. And in this episode, I'm not going to do like a 1v1. I'm not going to put the Daytona up against the Heritage Chronograph because I don't want to. I think we did that last time. I don't want to do it this time. Plus, the Daytona gets so much attention. It gets so much play all over. I think that the Tudor is an interesting topic that doesn't really get covered all that often. So instead of doing a 1v1, I'm going to tell you why I would buy the Tudor Heritage Chronograph. And if you agree with me, you can go ahead and do it as well. So quick history about the watch. In the early 70s, Tudor released the Monte Carlo, which it's called now, chronograph. It was manually wind chronograph with this really funky dial, and you can put a photo of it right here, with a 45-minute counter, not a 60. It's super cool watch, powered by Valjoux movement. It's become an icon of vintage manually wound chronographs. When you talk about them, you're saying Rolex Daytona, you're going Heuer Carrera, Heuer Artivia, all those kinds of watches, as well as Universal Genève, but the Tudor absolutely is worthy of a seat among maybe the top 10. So it is important that we talk about its kind of reissue, which Tudor released a couple of years ago in the United States. First, they kind of released a black model. It was black and gray and whatever, and it was a fine watch. It didn't speak to me. I recommended certain people buy it for whatever reasons, but it was not the watch that it needed to be released. Let's put it that way. It wasn't the fun watch that the blue is. So a little while after, they released this blue watch. Boom, there it is. And I think it's beautiful. We'll get into the kind of the details as to why I think it's such a great watch in a second. But first of all, I think it really does pay respect very well to the original 7169. I think that was the reference. So that's foundationally, I think that Tudor did a good job paying respect and modernizing a classic great watch, which is something that people, Jaeger LeCoultre has done it with the Reverso, but Rolex really hasn't, right? So Rolex kind of issuing a reissue is an interesting little thing, right? Because we're always begging Rolex to do that, even though they hardly will. Maybe with the ceramic Daytona, kind of, but not really, right? So I think that this is kind of Rolex's way of saying, like, hey guys, we're also kids at heart, we're watch geeks at heart that really want to see this be made, so we're doing it through a sister company. Okay, dial. Just like the original, it's a brilliant dial. I love the blue, I love the orange. I think it's balanced pretty damn well. It's not a complex dial. I don't think it's finished, immaculately, but it is a beautiful dial. I think they executed the date window really well. It's very unimposing. I mean, oftentimes, date windows can totally ruin a watch, and especially on chronographs. So I think that it was really nice that they did it kind of sleek, and it goes right in with the watch. So I definitely respect Tudor for that little design choice. It's sporty. It's very summery. I definitely it's kind of a spring summer watch. Could you wear it all year round? Of course you could, but I think it is a very, very cool looking dial. The bezel as well is, obviously basically the same bezel as in the original reference. I just like the way, almost like the Dutch, like the Dutch soccer team, the blue and the orange all goes together and a little bit of white. I think it's a really, really fun and perfect, like having a drink summer watch. To me, it's the beach. To me, it reminds me of just a fun watch. Zoom out a little bit and we'll look at the case for a second. Look at the beveling on the lugs. I think it's totally beautiful. You don't see that very often on watches at all, and certainly not the watches that we want to see them on, like Rolexes and stuff like that. Beveling is probably most famous, right, for Rolex subs, and they just don't do it anymore. So to see it happen on a Tudor, is really fun. Like I said before, it's the Rolex watch geeks saying, like, hey guys, we really do remember and wish we could still do beveling, but we can't in Rolex, so we're doing it here. So it definitely, to me, is very beautiful, and it shows not only beauty, but an extra level of finishing, right? And we're always talking about this, not overlooking case quality. Dial's important, and everything's important, but you want a holistic picture, especially at this price point at $4,400. You should be getting more than one good element. you're not spending $1,100, you know. So I do think that at that price range, Tudor is doing a good job with, you know, doing well on the case, you know, having a great dial design and overall construction. I think it would go just as well with a bathing suit as it will with a, you know, an Oxford shirt. You know, there's a huge range to it. I think that's a great thing. You know, even though it's much less than the Daytona, it's still a lot of money. I mean, $3,000 if you can get it pre-owned is still a lot of money. So I want it to be versatile. And although it is very distinct, I do think that it still has versatility, especially if you were to throw it on maybe a khaki strap to mellow out that blue and orange. It's a big watch at 42 millimeters, so that would be my biggest, you know, drawback. I don't think that I could personally wear that watch. It's just too big for my wrist. So for me, sorry, that's a bit of a deal breaker. But for most people, I completely understand that 42 millimeters is a great size. It's probably the best size for them. Because it is a little bit bigger than that 40 millimeter, you know, Rolex GMT Master, but it's still not by any means a Panerai at 45 or 46. So I think it's a really great sweet spot for most watch geeks. It's powered by a modular chronograph. You know, it's an ETA base. So is the movement impressive? No, by no means is the movement, you know, a feat of horology or anything really, but still, the original watches weren't. You know, the original Valjoux 72s inside of Daytonas, those weren't like impressive state-of-the-art movements. You know, even Patek was using movements made by, you know, other brands like Lamania. So overall, I think the watch is great. Like I said, I think it has a really beautiful, beefy case with great finishing. The dial is fun. The bezel is fun. On a NATO strap, I think that Tudor should be throwing in at least 3 NATOs as opposed to just one. I think it would look great with like a khaki strap or something like that. I don't know. But I think that they should try doing that because it is a summer watch. It is a fun watch, you know, so I think that would be a really great addition to make it a little bit more fun, make it a little bit more versatile, and switch it around, have a little bit, you know, just a little bit more of a good time with it. Taking all what I just said, the reason why I genuinely think that this is a better buy than a Daytona is you genuinely will have, in my opinion, more fun. Unless you are hung up on the Rolex name and hung up on owning a Daytona, which plenty of people are, which I have no problem with. I'm not dissing those people by any means. I would go with this Tudor. I would go with it because it's a fraction of the price. I think $4,400 retail, and you could probably get it on the secondhand market around $3,000, which is an incredible value prop. Whereas Daytonas, you're not touching until, you know, plus 10. So it's a totally different price segment. You're talking about the same parent company, and I genuinely feel like Tudor is getting more of the Rolex heart. Tudor is getting more of the, I don't want to say the innovation, but a lot more of the, you know, just the fun that Rolex wishes they were having in their watches. So I genuinely do think that this Tudor is not the cheap man's, but the smart man's Daytona. Ultimately, what you're missing from between this and the Daytona is the branding of Rolex and the Rolex in-house chronograph movement. Genuinely, most of us don't care about that. I mean, you know, we may pretend to, we may, you know, pretend as if our knowledge is much more vast than it is, but most of us really couldn't even tell the difference between the Rolex movement and the Tudor movement inside, or the ETA movement inside, the modular chronograph, believe it or not. So understanding ourselves, understanding that most of us aren't going to get the extra, you know, $7,000 to $8,000 of fun or enjoyment out of the Daytona, I would go with the Tudor. If you're really set on the Daytona, then I by no means want to put you off track from that. I think it's a great watch. It's a respectable watch. I think it's genuinely a watch that you could own, you know, just one of. It's your only watch and, you know, wear for the rest of your life. It does sport well. It does dress well. So I have no problem with it. But I do think that having a little bit of fun with the Tudor, for me, would bring a hell of a lot of value. So if I was going to buy one out of the two tomorrow, I would definitely go with the Tudor. But it really, 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 as always, depends on who you are, what you're looking to get out of your watch, what function you want it to serve, and stuff like that. Thank you guys for watching episode 81 of Ask TNH. Please subscribe to our YouTube channel below.